Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
The Saratoga City Council meeting, an inside look at the decisions that affect you and our community.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming this evening. Tonight we have one public hearing at 6:55, Community Development Citizens Advisory Committee recommendations. And at this time I'd like to ask Rich Ferguson, the chair of the committee, and Lindsay Connors to please come forward and just talk a little bit about this. And if anybody has any comments, we can open it up to the floor.
Good evening. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. We are a 12-member group of volunteers, and we met on 4 different occasions this year. The purpose of those meetings were to decide on a total of $309,480 of HUD Community Development Block Grant funds. We had a total of 18 requests. Can I sit down now? For $484,525.28. So 64% of those requests were available to award. I've talked to you a couple weeks ago about the basic process. What I understand is that I neglected to read into your minutes the specifics of the awards that we are recommending. So if you would, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
The Mother Susan Anderson Emergency Shelter, we recommended $14,000. The Saratoga Affordable Housing Group, $12,500. The Saratoga County Economic Opportunity Council, $10,000. Wellspring, the former domestic violence rape crisis, $7,500, for a total of $44,000 for public services. For non-public services, for the City of Saratoga Springs, the Residential Rehabilitation Grant Program, $90,000. For Saratoga Community Health Center, $50,000. The Saratoga Affordable Housing Group, $24,700. Rebuilding Together Saratoga County, $16,078.42. The Mother Susan Anderson Emergency Shelter, $12,000. The Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York, $7,320. And the Saratoga Springs Senior Citizen Center, $5,427.50. For administration, and program delivery of the grants for the City of Saratoga Springs, the Office of Community Development, $59,955 for a total of $309,480.92. And I would be delighted to entertain any questions if there are any.
I also just wanted to mention that we are working off of the anticipated funds, which would be the funds that we received last year, plus $9,705.92 that we will be reprogramming into next year. So once we do receive our award letter and get our final amount, all of the awards that Rich just mentioned, should they pass, will be adjusted accordingly by percentage across the board.
Great, thank you. If anybody would like to speak on this, you may come to the microphone. This one? He wasn't close enough, that's all. Are we closing? Okay, if there's no one to comment on these, we are closing this public hearing. Moving on to our agenda, I'd like to take a roll call, please.
Present.
Present.
Here.
Mayor Kelly? Here. Supervisor Hicks? Here. Supervisor Hicks? Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next on the agenda is the public comment period. I would ask that you try to keep your comments brief, 2 minutes maximum. You will hear a bell. After your 2 minutes, public comment period will last for 15 minutes. Please be respectful to the speakers while they are addressing the council, and please address the council as a whole. Anyone who wishes to address the council upon any issue may now come forward, state your name and your address, and provide your comments.
Hello, my name is Marcia Murphy. I'm a resident of Middle Grove, New York. I'm co-owner of Uncommon Grounds, DBA board member, and co-chair of the DBA Parking Committee. I hope that everyone took the time to read the paper I emailed you last week regarding the smart parking RFP. This paper highlights the harmful effects of implementing a paid parking system on businesses, often a double-digit decline in sales. 2 weeks ago, we began a passive petition in our store to gauge public opinion on paid parking. In this short period, over 800 signatures have been collected against paid parking in Saratoga Springs. As of this afternoon, the number rose to 1,100. In addition, Channel 10 News posted a survey on Friday, April 14th, with a simple question: would you pay to park in Saratoga Springs? 87% of the almost 200 participants voted no. Both measures indicate that public opinion cannot be ignored. Paid parking would be a huge discouragement to people choosing to come downtown. After repeated requests as to when the city will schedule a public forum to discuss this serious threat to our city's continued vitality, we still have no answer. If a public hearing is not scheduled prior to the awarding of a contract, it will appear that the city is intentionally shutting out the public. Not allowing the public to voice their opinion on such an important matter would be wrong. Paid parking will be harmful to our downtown businesses and our beautiful city. We have clear evidence to support this. In closing, will you schedule a public hearing prior to the awarding of the smart parking bid? And if so, when? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Thomas Kinsella. I live at 55 Railroad Place in apartment 324 in Saratoga Springs. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk, and thank you for providing the information available online so I could review it. I've taken the time to write a letter to each of you. I have a copy here. If you would please take that at some point in the evening and review it before you choose to place the award with the company. I'm a retired engineer. I have over 40 years of experience at the Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory, and half that time I spent working with subcontractors either in the field or awarding, reviewing RFPs, placing contracts. Eventually, I became the manager of that group. I also have 12 years experience on the planning board and 9 years of experience on the town board and the town of Greenfield, so I have some understanding of how local governments operate. I've used this experience to help me generate that letter. I've given both positive and negative points of what I see paid parking means to Saratoga Springs. I've tried to be objective with this letter, and I hope that you review it as part of your review. I am not a supporter of paid parking. I think that it will have an unintended consequence in the long term for the benefit of the city. I think that there are consequences that are not completely understood at this point, and the short-term benefit of receiving revenue is going to be offset by those long-term consequences. I would continue to gather. I support having another public hearing, as mentioned by the previous speaker. And in the meantime, I would encourage strong enforcement of the current parking laws. I know for a fact, I just went out on Railroad Place and took a look for a day during the normal parking spot, during the normal business time. 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock is the posted. In 7 spots in front of my apartment on Railroad Place, 4 of those cars out of 7 were there the entire time. Obviously, they're there working. They're not respecting the parking laws. So you could enforce the existing parking laws, you'd get some additional revenue, but you'd also get feedback from folks on whether or not the parking issue is a challenge or not. You'll hear from the workers. You'll also get some input from the businesses to say, yes, cycling people through the parking spots does open.
Thank you.
Please.
Hello, Council. My name is Sam Brewer. I live on Lake Avenue, and I've previously addressed the Council on several issues, including the parking issue. Tonight I'm going to read the lyrical poetry of the Bare Naked Ladies in one of their songs. If I had $1 million. So if I had, I'm not going to sing it. If I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a house. I would buy you a house. And if I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy furniture for your house, maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman. If I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you a K car, a nice Reliant automobile. And if I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. Now, in light of the $1 million radio purchase for the City of Saratoga Springs Police Department, I've rewritten the lyrics, and they go as follows. If I had $1 million for the Saratoga Springs Police Department, if I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you new uniforms. I'd buy you new uniforms. And if I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you all master's degrees in social work and maybe some other college courses and training. If I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you new shoes, horses, bikes, and cars. And I would not buy you new radios. So I just want to remind the council that there's no requirement that the 5 people here representing the 30,000 plus residents of Saratoga Springs spend any money, let alone $1 million on radios. And I have experience in the military with advanced digital cryptographic equipment as well as analog radios. And I can tell you unequivocally that old analog radios from the 1960s work better. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam Scarborough. I live in Saratoga Springs, and I thought a good deal about the parking issue, and just a reminder, the city has been voted as having one of the nicest downtowns. I've done commercial real estate for many years, and the charm of the city could possibly be eroding. One of the things about having open parking, it's kind of a nice idea. Essentially, once you do paid parking, you're like 79th Street on the west side of Manhattan, whereby people run out and then just put more coins in. So it becomes less inclusive and more looks like this is just a rich person's city. So I'll end with when you were voted one of the nicest downtowns in the country, and I travel extensively. I think that's relevant. I know you're looking for revenues, but I think the beauty and charm factor, for me at least, is very critical. And I'd like to see it maintained and not have parking meters all over the place. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Hamilton. I live in Saratoga Springs. I own Putnam Market with my sister. In June, we'll celebrate our 23rd year of being in business. Last year, I'm going to give some math here. Last year, we did $2.6 million in sales. Our net income last year was $3,000. That's all we had left over after paying rent and all the other kinds of things. In that process, we collected over $100,000 in sales tax that we contributed to Saratoga Springs. And we have exciting expenses like $16,000 a month in rent, for example. What my business counts on is customers coming through the door. And I am prepared as a business owner to take my hits if I don't do a good job with the kind of food that we sell, the kind of environment we provide. That's my deal. What I need the city to do is help me bring the customers into my store. And in general, the city has done an extraordinary job at that. I feel that paid parking will interfere with that. In my mind, paid parking is a way to get the happy tourists and everybody else that lives around here to come into our town, force them to pay, and then assault them with aggressive panhandlers once they get out of their car. I live with these panhandlers day in and day out. If they're not in the front of the store, they're in the back of my store. I have to deal with this every single day, and I feel like paid parking is just one more poke in the eye to people coming to visit our city. My business cannot survive without foot traffic, and we've survived for a pretty long time, and I feel like paid parking would be a real detriment to me being able to continue my business at the way that we've been able to do it and to be able to contribute in excess of $100,000 in sales tax to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonnie Sellers. I live in town, and I want to thank you for your time. Yeah, every once in a while I'll go through the family pictures, and I remember having my picture taken with my father. And we were on Broadway, and it was the one-armed bandit in the background, and you could see the full stock of parked cars along Broadway. And ever since they were removed, it's been a Saratoga tradition to welcome people and have a warm heart about everything and not have paid parking. I think it's just going to snowball and wind up being a whole lot more than we need it to be. And I don't think it's necessary. I think there are other ways that we can try and find our revenue that we need to balance our budget. And we know you have big expenses, but this should not be one of them because I think it will be very costly for the city in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Ken Raleigh. I'm from Round Lake, New York. My girlfriend said because I have long hair, nobody would take me seriously. I'm also wearing green socks, so I guess I'm in real trouble. I'd rather you keep in mind that I've been at Shearson Lehman Brothers and the head of marketing PR for numerous large organizations, some of which you know, and also very high-profile people, some of which you know. So I may look like a hippie, but I'm not. I want to talk about the parking issue, if I may. You heard some of the statistics which were given by Uncommon Grounds. No one I've spoken to wants this to occur. Troy implemented this parking back in the, I think it was 1960s, early 70s. It did serious damage to downtown. And last week, I've heard all kinds of interesting things. I've heard that the city is desperate for cash, yet I've been sent a link that shows that your bond rating is very solid, in fact was raised last year due to your good fiscal management. So I'm a little concerned and wondering why, in fact, there's a need for cash this serious. This morning I heard that this is a done deal. The city council and the mayor want this. It's going to happen. Nothing's going to stop it. I've heard that several times. Things like that, this sort of thing, suggests that there might be a communications problem. I don't think a lot of people know really what you're doing with the parking situation. I went on the Facebook page of the city, and the most recent post was at Christmas time. And I'm wondering if you could do a better job telling people what's going on, number one. And number two, I really think you have to be careful and listen to what the public's saying. The evidence is overwhelming that people don't want it here. This city is not, again, I'm not from the city. This city is not just a group of people who live here. This is one of the crown jewels of the entire state, not just locally, but the entire state. And I think to have ugly parking meters, that were recommended, 5 out of 6, I understand, by parking consultants and not true independent third-party parking consultants who would give you advice without them having anything involved in it in terms of making money as a result of giving you that advice, would probably be a good move. So I beseech you to please be careful when you make this decision, that you listen to the people of this community.
Thank you.
And do what they want. Thanks
you.
so much.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Hi, Darlene McGraw. I live here in the city of Saratoga Springs. Last meeting, I took a little vacation. I have to think hard before I say this, but happy belated birthday, Matt. Sorry, I didn't say that at the county. I didn't want to embarrass you. I want to let you guys know that there are resources, so we don't have to go grabbing money from people from parking meters and parking enforcement. No, I love it when people get tickets because, you know, they're doing something not supposed to anyways. But the Epilepsy Foundation of Northeastern New York and the autism, there's a bill for autism with first aid and better communication for our first responders and law enforcement officers. So I think we should take advantage of that so we can better communicate with each other. And parking, okay, gonna pay to park. I don't wanna pay to park, so what am I gonna do? I'm either gonna go on the west side or the east side, and I'll get back into town if I really wanna go. Okay, but that's not gonna resolve this parking issue. And during track season, I have people park on my lawn, on the grass, all the time, and it looks like trash now. I want something to be done with the city. It's not my responsibility. It's not my landlord's responsibility. It's between the road and the sidewalk. It needs to be done by the city. And people need to learn how to park on roadways where parking's there. But just because there's parking spots doesn't mean it's going to end. Get better public transportation. We have a little bit, the most we have in Saratoga County, but still, the less cars on the road, the better it is health-wise, and obviously the less parking we need. If we keep having parking garages, parking places, if we stop building condos and all these richy-roo places to live, and stop building all these car dealerships, I'm not gonna die of a heart attack. I hope I don't die of a heart attack.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask the council if they have any response. I do have one response that I'd like to start with about the parking. One thing is we are not shutting out the public. I think that, you know, it's very clear that I have met with the Murphys at Uncommon Grounds, and I'll meet with anybody that makes an appointment in my office. And we clearly stated at the last meeting that we will not be pushing this forward without the council doing their homework. And I said, I haven't even gotten to review the RFPs, and I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you haven't, John. So, you know, I think that it's premature to think that the council is jamming this through. This is not what we do. We would never do that as a council, and I think that we can all agree on that sitting right here. And I would speak for Commissioner Saratoga, who it's his RFP, that this is something that we take very seriously. And I think that we do listen to public input, and I really feel a little bit, you know, insulted when people come up there and say that we're not listening, because I can tell you we've had several conversations, especially Commissioner Madigan and myself, about this. So, you know, I would just ask you to, you know, don't jump the gun on us. We're doing our due diligence, and this is more about smart parking, and everybody jumped the gun on the paid parking. So just, you know, I would ask you to just bear with us. If you want to meet with me, my office is open. I am here 8 to 10 hours a day.
I'd like to respond on the same issue. So there was some miscommunication on the city's end when the first RFP went out. I was interviewed by the Saratogian, and I actually said to the Saratogian, this isn't about paid parking. This is more about logistics, getting people into the city, having them find a parking spot, letting them know if there are any open parking spots in our parking garages so that you don't go all the way to the top and find there are no parking spots and then drive all the way back down to the bottom and start circling around and looking for more parking. This is about having maybe electronic signs that say there are 5 open spots in this parking garage and using technology to tell you how many spots might exist. So the next day I wake up and I get a call from Commissioner Frank who says, they're going to tar and feather you down Broadway, 90-point font, paid parking in Saratoga Springs. But if you read the article, you see that I say this is not about paid parking. So I couldn't understand what had happened. I went away, I pulled up the RFP, and sure enough, the first line in the RFP says paid parking, management system. So we got together and we pulled that back because that really isn't how it should go out. So there's our first level of miscommunication. We resubmitted the RFP. What are we looking for? Well, first, let me dispel the notion that the city is desperate for revenue. We are not desperate for revenue. If we were desperate for revenue, we could raise taxes to bring in revenue. I have not raised taxes or proposed an increase in taxes to this council since I became finance commissioner in 2012. So that is the way cities are able to raise revenue if they are desperate for it. We are not. We are in excellent financial condition. Our bond rating is excellent. Our fund balances are high and in a healthy percentage of operating funds. So let me dispel that. This is not about the city trying to make more revenue. This really is about smart parking. And I will say this right here and right now, you will never see meters on Broadway. I don't know why that keeps coming up, so I feel the need to be able to say that here so that this message gets out. There is no reason to have big, ugly black meters with caps all over them up and down Broadway. That's not going to happen. However, I am interested, and I think most of the council is interested in smart parking technologies. They exist. People should be able to get off Broadway when they come to the race course. They should know that you can go down either one of those crescents, Crescent Street, Crescent Ave, you're on Nelson, you can get to the race course. People should know how many open spots we have in our parking garages. There are great technologies out there that can tell you that before you go all the way to the top of them. Do we need to spend money to potentially put in those types of technologies? Yes, we do. Do we have the money to do those potential technologies? Perhaps we do through our bonding capabilities. But right now we're in an information finding and seeking place. We want to see what's out there. We want to see what companies want to present to us. So far, overall, I'll be honest, I'm not overly impressed with all of the RFPs. However, I have not made it through all of them. We're not going to rush anything. We're not going to force anything down anybody's throat. But what we do hope to have is a good solution to the logistical nightmares that this city does have, especially when we get really, really busy during the summertime. So I would hope that now the community can hear at least what I'm saying as a commissioner, reinforcing what the mayor has said as the mayor. We're taking our time. We're looking at this. We may not award any bid. If we do decide that we found one that we like, of course we're going to involve the public. We will figure out what the next steps are. Thank you.
Peter?
Mayor, I'd like to address the point that was raised by Mr. Brewer concerning the investment that the city is making in our emergency radio network. Basically, the city is putting in money into this network because right now we have many dead spots within the city for the old-fashioned radio network that we had. We have an inability to communicate the full spectrum of data that our first responders need, whether they be firefighters or whether they be policemen. The data that they need in order to be able to adequately address emergency situations on an immediate basis. It can't be done with our present system. Analog radios do not allow us to communicate to the broad group of first responders that we need to respond to immediately. And most importantly, our old radios would not allow us to participate in the new tri-county emergency radio network system, because the problem is that particularly crime doesn't end at the border of our city. It doesn't necessarily start within the city. It may start outside, and it doesn't end within the city. We need to be able to communicate effectively and immediately with other first responders, whether it be the sheriff's office, whether it be the state police, whether it be the Albany County Sheriff's Office. And the only way to do that is to upgrade our current system. I think that the investment that the city is making is very prudent, and I think it's timely, and I just would like to explain that to anyone who questions that investment.
Thank you.
I'm actually very spoiled because I've been here for so long. Like the paid parking, I've gone through this a number of times, but I'm really spoiled as a council member because I'm a business person, and I've been on Broadway for 27 years in 3 different locations, including 16 years at a building I bought back in 2001. So I'm spoiled because I see a lot of people, I'm an accountant, so a lot of people come in for their taxes. Most of them are business people or related. And so I kind of, it's almost like cheating. I don't ask, people kind of give me their point of view. And relating to paid parking, I honestly have never had anybody ever come in all these years and say, we need paid parking. I just have never heard it. Now, there has been not as much complaint when we were talking about building a parking garage back behind the city center, that the city center would charge after 1 hour, and maybe during certain events. I think people were okay with that, even though it was free parking currently. But to tell you, I was on TV, I would never vote for paid parking. It's just, competition is just too tough in business right now. Like I had mentioned on Channel 13 about 2 months ago, right before the same day I called Commissioner Madigan on this, was, we're fighting. You can go on Amazon and hit a button and, I don't know, some drone or somebody, UPS truck's there in 2 minutes and drops things off. It's so hard to be, especially retail type business and food and restaurant business, because there's just so much competition, especially in retail right now. To put paid parking here, I just think it would really, really hurt the economic viability of the city. And whatever we would pick up in paid parking, you have to understand, and there are a lot of smart ways of doing it. There's pods in the ground versus the pictures when Bonnie Sellers had them, and I've seen the pictures in the old days. But you still have to have maintenance on these things. You still have to hire an outside company. There's people involved. So there's a net. You can't look at the gross. You got to look at the net revenues, and then you're going to have to look at the potential of dropped sales tax or lowered sales tax. So I haven't seen any thing yet. I know the original one had paid parking as like number 1. I believe that was rewritten. They're in. All we do is we sift them, get them ready, and then it would be up to Commissioner Scirocco to give us what his proposal would be first, and then the council would review it. So when I got here, because I couldn't make yesterday's meeting, I didn't see this on the agenda, so I'm happy it's not on the agenda. I think a lot of people thought it might have been on the agenda tonight. But to tell you how bad it is for paid parking, back when we had the fiscal crisis in 2009, when the market dropped in late 2008 and there was layoffs and all these things, prior to Commissioner Madigan, Commissioner Ivins said we have to have paid parking, we're in so much trouble, we can't pay our bills. And he put together I think it was an 8-member committee or 10-member committee of his own hand-picked people who were all pro-paid parking people. And they had these studies and they did everything, and then they voted 8-0 against having paid parking. This was his own hand-picked committee to do this because they met with the businesses downtown and they found across the board that the businesses just did not want it. They wanted solutions to the parking. There was a lot of, and we didn't have the wherefore-all technology-wise back then that we have now. And there was even things like, which sounded really simple, and we weren't legally able to do it. We were just going to put stripes. So, because what we would do, cars would park and take too many spots and things like that. So we were going to stripe on Broadway, but because it was a state highway and the stripes had to be a certain distance to be like a 6-foot bed truck and all these different rules, we found out if we did stripe, we would actually lose parking spots because there would be less parking spots. So there was a lot of work that has been done on this 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, and this comes around. And I had gotten a couple texts that morning, but I just knew before, as soon as it hit the paper, I'm like, people just aren't, especially businesses. But not just that, when I talk to not just my regular clients, they're like, I can go to the mall, I can go online, I'm going to pay to go downtown. They all complain about parking. So I believe, and I can't speak for Commissioner Scirocco because he's not here, but I believe what the focus, at least from my part, is I will not vote for anything that's paid parking. But I believe what Commissioner Madigan has brought up in the past, and I think Mayor Kelly and some other people have brought up, is if we did have these various devices, it would direct people via their cell phones or whatever and Commissioner Madigan can explain this much better than I can, so we would know where the open spots are. So even like when I'm in Portsmouth, they have paid parking there, unfortunately, but when I was up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I could go on my phone and figure out where to park because they would tell me all the open spots, and there's signs to say open spots in East Wing and West Wing. So I think that's more of the direction that we would be going. Again, I can't speak for the other council members, but I won't vote for paid parking. I don't think it makes a lot of sense at this point. Again, I haven't without seeing proposals, but I'm not voting for it. Thank you. Oh, and if I did have $1 million, I'd probably give my notice tomorrow.
Me too. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I want to support Commissioner Martin in what you said in response to, I looked at that $1 million quite a bit last year when it came through the capital budget because I did think it was a lot of money. And I met with the chiefs, and I met with everybody I could meet with about that $1 million because $1 million is a lot of money, but so are people's safety. And so this tower is well worth the $1 million that we will spend on it. There are a number of dead spots in the city where the police are unable to communicate. And I believe it also helps tie us into the 911 system that works with the county, which, you know, at this day and age, we should all be tied in, especially if we need to call in for backup to the county sheriff's office. So I just wanted to state that for the record. There was a lot of research that went into that $1 million before it went on the capital budget program.
Right, and it's bonded. So
and
this is bonded. Right. So this is not a big. Granted, it is $1 million, but it's over. I don't know how long the bond is. Probably 15, 20 years. So
30 years.
You know, and with a low interest rate and. You know, I don't think that the tax bite is pennies to each individual.
With a very low interest rate with our excellent bond rating. Thank you.
May I?
Okay, nope, I'm sorry. I'm closing public comment. Thank you.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
No, I'm sorry, I'm closing public comment. There's one presentation tonight, and it's Enterprise Fleet Management, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Madigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have a presentation from Enterprise about fleet management. My voice is sort of going, so I was going to turn this over to Deputy Commissioner of Finance, Mike Sharp, who's been mostly responsible for organizing this project on behalf of the city, so I'm going to let him make introductions and tell you a little bit about the presentation that we're working towards saving some money in the budget on.
Thank you very much. So over the years, the acquisition and maintenance of the city's automobiles has been a decentralized process, with each department left to fend for themselves. This has led to budgetary issues where the finance department never knows what to expect each year. Additionally, the prioritization of some departments and vehicles over others has led the city retaining some older models which are less safe and less efficient, resulting in increased maintenance and fuel costs. So to address this, Finance has been in contact with Enterprise's Fleet Management Division, which works with dozens of government agencies around the country on similar issues. Tonight, 2 representatives from Enterprise will present to the City Council about their fleet management program and how the city might benefit. So I would note that these discussions have been around non-emergency, non-CDL vehicles, of which the city has about 30. Enterprise does have a program for police cars, you see one on the first slide. Because police cars obviously are much different in their usage, that tends to be a different program, but I'll let the guys from Enterprise talk about that. So I'll now turn it over to Ryan Forrest of Enterprise.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Council, for the time. Mike, thank you for all the information and the time you've invested so far. Yes, so I'm Ryan Forrest with Enterprise Fleet. This is my area manager, Jacob Garth, for all of New York and New Jersey. We're going to make this quick because we're actually double parked, ironically. Just kidding.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
So what we want to, goes a little quick. What we want to talk about today, we want to give a little bit of an overview of enterprise, get into some of the impact that we want to have on the city, talk about the numbers part of it and how to implement a plan like this. We're working with a lot of other municipalities throughout New York, about 50, such as City of Amsterdam, Franklin County, Columbia County, Orange County. And what we're doing with them is, the goal is simple. We want to lower the average age of the fleet, and we want to do that for less than what you guys are spending today. So you'll hear that theme come up currently. We actually came up with a 10-year plan that's going to save you guys $111,000 over that period of time. So real quickly, just to jump in a little more about enterprise, everyone's more familiar with the rent-a-car side of our business. We have 2 million vehicles that we own and operate, and we've been doing this for 60 years. Big whoop, what does that mean to you guys? Well, we're allow you guys to leverage our tools and technology that we use to manage our fleet, because every dollar we save or every dollar we spend is $2 million to our bottom line. And although you guys don't have 2 million vehicles in your fleet, we take that same exact philosophy. So every dollar we can save you, we want to try to do that to drive down your costs. I forgot to mention too, but if any questions come up, feel free to shoot them out as I'm going through this. I don't want you to go.
I would like, as you're going through the presentation, where I realize there's a savings on the bottom line, there's also sort of a time-saving aspect to this in terms of servicing the vehicles.
Correct.
So if you can touch on that too as you go through the presentation.
Thank you. So it's a perfect segue into this slide. What we're trying to talk about is every municipality is different, right? So as we know from municipalities we see, you guys buy vehicles very cheap, you drive very few miles, and then you keep vehicles 10, 15, maybe 20 years on average. For you guys, the current life cycle is 14 years, and over half the fleet is at or above 10 years old. And that 10-year mark is an important one because that's where the resale value drops, and the operating costs, like maintenance and fuel, start to rise. And exactly to your point, vehicles, not only do they cost more, they're in the shop more frequently, so downtime is another big factor where they're constantly being worked on. So by lowering the average age of the fleet, you're going to inherently reduce your operating expenses. Newer vehicles cost less to maintain. It's just oil changes, maybe brakes and tires, normal wear and tear, and they have better fuel economy. They're at their peak as far as fuel economy goes in newer vehicles. So by reducing the operating expenses, that's going to inherently allow you to maintain a manageable vehicle budget, because as I'll show you in a second, you guys are challenged by inconsistent yearly budgets, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If you take a look at the bottom part of this graph, you have a model year analysis. This is where I was mentioning you have some years you guys buy no vehicles, other years you have 5 vehicles, and so on down the line. So you see those 16 that are over 10 years old, that's half the fleet there. So what we want to try to do, as I said, is we want to try to maintain a manageable budget for you guys. So the first step in that is we broke out your fleet in the upper left for a fleet profile. We broke it out by vehicle type, the number, average age, and the average annual mileage. And then we took that and we put it into a fleet replacement schedule. Basically, the criteria is very simple. We want to get rid of your oldest vehicles with the highest mileage first. So that equates to about 7 vehicles in year 1 and 6 and so on down the line. In the far right column, we did identify a couple of vehicles that we feel are underutilized, so you guys are probably keeping them around as spare vehicles that won't actually necessarily need to be had anymore by the city. So I'll show you how that shakes out in a minute as well. There's a lot going on here, but basically what I want to focus on is the average line is what you guys are currently spending today for your fleet. Basically, you're getting about 2 vehicles a year. I want you to focus on the purchase budget there of $50,000, the maintenance of $44,000, and the fuel. Those are your 3 main buckets for what you're going to be spending on these vehicles. Your entire fleet budget is $125,000. So by talking about that proactive replacement strategy I mentioned earlier, getting rid of 7 of your oldest vehicles with the highest mileage that are going to inherently be your biggest offenders, you're going to reduce your operating costs, your maintenance and fuel, from $44,000 to $35,000 and from $28,000 to $26,000. Now, if you notice, instead of purchasing those 7 vehicles, we're proposing you leverage what's called an open-ended equity lease. Now, when I say lease, everyone inherently, they think of the regular dealership style lease that everyone knows. So your 3-year, 10,000 mile a year lease that you would go at any Ford or Chevy dealer. At those, you can't ding it up, you can't turn in the car early, anything like that. This is not that type of lease. It's more, it leverages the cash flow benefits of that while giving you guys all the ownership rights of the vehicle. So there's no mileage restrictions, there's no wear and tear penalties, there's no early termination fees. That's the benefit to you guys, because as we know, you can't be locked into any set rate, and you have to be able to, if someone dings up the car, you can't be held liable for that. So by leasing those 7 vehicles, you're actually going to lay out less capital than you would if you were to buy your 2 vehicles on average. So your fleet budget's going to drop from $125,000 to $100,000, saving you guys just about 19.5% in year 1 alone. Now, as you get into the program, you're going to lease more vehicles, so that lease column is going to go up, and your operating budget is going to start to drop. Over the 10-year period of time, as I said, we're going to save $111,000, and you have an average sustainable savings of $17,000. What that average sustainable savings is that takes a look at the last 5 years while you guys are fully implemented into this program, and it shows you what 5 years of a proactive replacement strategy looks like through Enterprise. So that you're saving just under 14% average annually. The one thing this does not take into consideration is the current fleet equity from the vehicles that you guys have today. So you have 31 vehicles in fleet that we're going to be selling off over a 5-year period of time. That equity is going to come back to you guys. So over 10 years, you guys are going to not only free up $111,000 in a proactive replacement plan, but you're also going to free up an additional $123,000 in cash back to the city. So that is a net result of $234,000 conservatively that we anticipate we can save. Now, this also is reducing your current life cycle, as I mentioned, from 14 years down to 5, which is going to inherently free up time for the vehicles. They're not going to need to go in the shop as much. They're going to be newer, safer, more fuel-efficient vehicles for the city to operate. So, there are certain things like maintenance and fuel that are inherently going to go down, as I mentioned, just by implementing this type of program. We do offer ancillary programs to help you guys better track those and drive those costs down further. So our maintenance program will actually allow you guys to leverage our buying power with local shops to help drive down those costs. We're going to monitor and track those for you, again, as if they're our own fleet of vehicles. On the right, you see a snapshot. Your employees can pull up where's the nearest maintenance shop to go within a 5-mile radius or 10-mile, wherever they are. And then that'll direct them to an Enterprise shop. And it's your regular STS, Firestone, Jiffy Lube, little mom and pop shops, however you want to go about, send wherever they want to go. It's also going to free up your mechanics time because, again, we don't do work on the bigger CDL vehicles, so they can focus their energy and efforts on those as well as the equipment, and then outsource, give the work back to the people in the city. One of the biggest keys or pieces to this puzzle is the resale of the vehicles, finding the right time to sell your vehicles before they start costing you money. So Enterprise, again, I go back to the numbers, we sell over 1 million vehicles a year. We can't roll the dice and throw these vehicles through the auction and just cross our fingers and hope the best happens. We hand sell 85% of our vehicles directly to dealerships to make sure we're getting the top dollar for them. Now, you guys are in a very good position because, as I mentioned in the beginning, you buy vehicles so cheap. So if any one of us were to go into a dealership and we were to buy a $30,000 pickup truck, that's what we're going to get $30,000. We're going to drive it off the lot. It's going to lose 20% of its value. It's worth $24,000 right off the bat. You guys, you're actually going to buy that vehicle at about $24,000. So your depreciation is in a very unique spot where you can actually sell those vehicles at times for more than what you paid for them. We've done that in multiple situations. Franklin County was one of them where after a year, the market shifted and we were actually able to sell those pickup trucks for $25,000, $26,000, and that came back to the county. Can't guarantee that'll always happen, but it's always a benefit. So let's fast forward. You guys love the program, think it's a great idea. We implement. Now we're down the line. We made this plan. We've put this 10-year plan together. Now we've implemented it. A year from now, annually, we're going to be coming up with what's called an annual client review. So you're going to have a designated account management team that's going to be sitting down with you at least twice a year to talk about the fleet. For others like Columbia County, we go out quarterly. For other customers, we go out monthly. It's really whatever you guys works best for you. But on your annual client review, we're going to take the plan that we put in place and we're going to grade ourselves. How did we do against the plan? What areas can we improve on? What other opportunities are there for savings? And we're going to show you what those are. And then you have all this data available to you 24/7 on our client website. So you can pull up, see your entire vehicle list, see what your expenses are, what each vehicle's costing you, and that help drive down those costs over time. One of the biggest areas that we didn't touch on, that's not a hard dollar cost, I call it, is the safety. It's more of an ancillary benefit that you get from newer vehicles, but we all see it today, all the Bluetooth backup cameras, lane warnings, electronic stability control. Those all come out in newer vehicles. Manufacturers are constantly working to come up with more efficient, safer vehicles. So with this plan, reducing your cycle from 14 years down to 5 years, you're going to have newer vehicles that are safer for your employees to drive around. And again, that's just something that we can't put a hard dollar cost to, but something that's very important. So anything that I've talked about today that you may not have seemed like it made sense, and you want to feel free to reach out to anyone we've worked with. Again, we're working with nearly 50 in the state of New York alone. The program is tried and true. We have a few case studies that I brought with me I can share with you today. And really what it comes down to is us managing your fleet, lowering the age for less than what you're spending today, and focusing on driving down each vehicle's total cost of ownership, so you're not spending more than you need to run your fleet of vehicles. Again, I want to thank you all for the time. I know that there's others that are always trying to present this to you and information, and I really appreciate you having me in tonight.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you actually purchase the vehicles? Or do we purchase the vehicles from you? Is that part of this? I guess I sort of missed that.
Sure.
Because you were talking about we buy them, but we buy them at a certain percentage less. Will we still buy them at that same percentage that we buy them today, even though we might be buying them through you?
Yes, you would. So what we do is, ideally, the best way to go about acquiring the vehicles is directly through the manufacturers. That way we can build you the exact vehicle you want to spec. It's also at the cheapest price point, and we get you the invoice minus your government rebates. If we need something off the dealership lot a little quicker, you would get the same, whatever that price of the vehicle is, minus your government incentives.
All right, I know that sounded like sort of a basic question, but I wanted to make sure that piece was included in the fleet management. Right now, we go out and try to buy our own, but we would do everything through your fleet management system. And so if a car needed a oil change, it could just quickly pull into one of these spots that you had on the, on the map that you were showing. Some of them are mom and pop shops, but that would be all part of the fleet management system.
Correct.
So that we wouldn't have to take resources away. Here, I think there's somebody who does like all the oil changes, but they also do the bigger issues on the CDL vehicles like you were talking about.
Correct.
So there may be other questions about the program. Unfortunately, our Commissioner of Public Works is not here this evening, and he would probably be the one person I would really want to hear this presentation, so bad timing on my part. But I didn't realize he wasn't going to be here this evening until like yesterday. Anyway, do you also offer something similar for, like, say, police vehicles? I know this is for more service vehicles, but I'm just wondering if there's, something we might be able to potentially explore to help free up some resources. And I'm always in this issue where, from the budget point of view, I never know how many cars people are going to request. I don't know, whether it's DPW or public safety or even some of the other service vehicles. It would just be nice to be on some kind of system that we were always budgeting and planning for, instead of waiting until a car just kind of dies on you 14, 15 years from now.
Correct. Yes. Yes, we do have a program for the police vehicles as well. Typically, We always like to break out the general fleet and the police fleet just because the mileage patterns are different and the aftermarket equipment that goes into them is much more extensive. So to tie it all in it would kind of skew the numbers a little bit more. So we could take a deeper dive into the police as a separate, I put the same analysis together just for the police fleet.
But is it a whole separate program too? Or
No,
is it just part of this fleet management program?
It's the same exact thing, yeah. It would just be a different cost analysis to look at.
Different cost analysis.
Yeah.
Right, that was going to be my question, that clearly the police, because that's just the aggregate of everything in there, but you would have to definitely separate the police vehicles, or if there was, other type of...
And they're built to certain specifications too.
Exactly, yeah. There's going to be more aftermarket that goes into those and cages, equipment, things like that, so.
Sure, great. And in the Public Safety Department, we have more than just police vehicles. We also have code enforcement vehicles, traffic enforcement vehicles. So some of that could be in this program. I have a couple of questions. One, I'm sorry, but I didn't quite understand when Commissioner Madigan asked, do we purchase the vehicles, but yet this is referred to as an open-ended purchasing lease, is that right? Who's the title to the vehicle reside in? With the New York State title, who does it reside in?
It would reside with Enterprise.
Okay, so we don't really purchase the vehicles here. You purchase the vehicles on our behalf.
Correct.
Okay.
We acquire the vehicles. Sorry for that misunderstanding.
Then I understand that. Under the scenario that you illustrated here, what's the APR, or average interest rate, that you're using?
Under that, it's 4.75%.
Okay, so basically, that's what our carrying cost is there. On the analysis that you did here, showing the 10-year differential between what you estimate we'd be coming out under our current plan versus under this open-end purchasing lease arrangement. Did you calculate in or include in the residual value on the city's owned card, so under our current arrangement, the residual value of any car that the city would purchase during those 10 years and then hold at the end of that period? In doing an apples-to-apples presentation.
I'm just going to go.
So what I heard you talk about was the city recouping the residual value of the cars that it currently owns and would sell during that period. But my question is, in terms of doing the analysis, trying to compare one to the other, when you were looking at the side of the city continuing with its existing plan, did you calculate in the value of the residual value of vehicles that the city would purchase during that 10-year period?
Probably not. But I do know what happens is we actually end up donating our vehicles. I don't know how many, if you've sat through a lot of meetings, our vehicles get so old, we hang on to them for so long that you'll see a lot of times an award a bid for donation of these vehicles on Commissioner Frank's agenda. So, and we maybe make like, what, $200? Something like that. So there's the potential to recoup a lot of additional money, right, I think, through this process.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll obviously need to take a look at these and
I can actually directly answer that question. So if you take a look to your point, Commissioner Madigan, you can take a look and see that at the very end, with the amount of vehicles that we'd be getting rid of in the first year, most of those vehicles are about 15 years old. So to your point, there's not a lot of equity in those vehicles when we go to sell them off. And then if you go back to this sheet over here, your purchase budget of $52,282, that's not only the purchase budget, which is an average purchase budget, by the way. Your purchase budget does fluctuate year over year, as you can see in the previous slide, where some years you're buying 5 vehicles, some years you're buying 2, some years you're buying 1. So that purchase budget is what your average budget is annually, year over year, that $52,000. It takes into consideration the limited equity you get from your current fleet, along with what it would cost to, based on the fleet profile of what it would cost to purchase the vehicles today. It is very low because you're only getting a couple vehicles per year. So that's why your purchase budget is relatively low. The reason why it's low is because you're keeping your vehicles on average for about 14 years. So that's how those numbers all come together. So the equity in your current fleet today is taken into consideration into that purchase budget. What's also taken into consideration to this, and I'm going to point this out for a moment, look at your net cash column. You're going to watch it year over year. It goes down from 24 to 56. Then you have the 2 negative years. The following year, it jumps from 29,000 to 38,000. What's happening there, this is again the residual. Now we're selling the first round of vehicles, the first 7 vehicles that were leased in the first year. That equity is coming back to the city. When that equity comes back to the city, now it starts to fund the program itself. Because you buy your vehicle so cheap, like he said, you've mitigated a lot of that depreciation. And that's where it really starts to pay it back. So to Ryan's point a few moments ago, equity, resale, disposal is a big opportunity within this city and a lot of counties and municipalities that we've worked with up and down the state of New York. That help answer the question?
I think I've got the answer to my question. My point is not what's happening. I understand what's happening in 2020 and 2021. My point is on 2027, or let's take it to 2028, what you've got at the end of 2028, under the leased program, the city has just about 0 equity in fleet, okay? And if the city continued on its existing path at the end of 2028, the city would have something much more significant than 0 in terms of equity in its fleet.
Actually, I'm going to address that for a moment here. Actually, you're right. The city wouldn't have 0 equity. What the city would have is they'd still have continued equity with the vehicles that are still in the program because we have a balanced approach to it. So every year we're replacing vehicles in this model right here. And this is the most conservative model we have. So you'll always have equity coming back into your fleet. And because it's an open-ended lease and you have the flexibility to switch terms and get in and out when the market justifies it, you can always grab that equity. Case in point, we worked with Detroit. Everybody heard it happen in Detroit. One of the things that happened was when they got audited and the state came in and had a conversation with them, the one thing they were doing right was the fact that they were doing the open-end equity leases and they were able to leverage some of that flexibility within their fleet. They had started doing that a while ago. So you will always have equity in your fleet. And by the way you purchase your vehicles, you will always be in a positive equity situation once you get to year 5.
Anything else?
That was a great question, though. It was a great question. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The clicker.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
Okay, moving on, there is no executive session tonight. However, I would like to have an attorney-client meeting at the end of this meeting to discuss a legal matter. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. On to the consent agenda. We have to remove item number 7. It was put on by ERA. So with that removed, I make a motion that I move that the City Council accept the consent agenda as included minus number 7. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. On to the Mayor's Department. My first item is an appointment to the Recreation Commission. And this is Michelle Marola. The council approved, I did bring this to the council on February 20th. However, her oath was not signed in 30 days, so I will be bringing it back tonight, and I will have that signed. So I just wanted to make that announcement. Her effective date will be April 17th, 2018, for a term of 7 years. My next item is an announcement, Fair Housing Month proclamation. And I know that Lindsay Connors is our community development planner, is in the audience today, and I just would like to read this into the record. Whereas April marks the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which sought to eliminate discrimination in housing opportunities and to affirm further housing choices for all Americans. And whereas the previous mentioned federal act ensures fair housing opportunities regardless of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familiar status, disability, and whereas New York state law covers all the same characteristics, but also protects based on religion, marital status, sexual orientation, age, and military status. And whereas the Violence Against Women's Reauthorization Act of 2013 ensures housing protection for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. And whereas the ongoing struggle for dignity and housing opportunities for all is not the exclusive province of the federal government. And whereas vigorous local efforts to combat discrimination can be as effective, and if not more so than the federal efforts. Whereas illegal barriers to equal opportunities in housing, no matter how subtle, diminish the rights of all. Now therefore, be it resolved that in the pursuit of the shared goal and responsibility of providing equal housing opportunities for men and women, the City of Saratoga Springs, New York, does hereby join in the national celebration by proclaiming April 2018 as Fair Housing Month, and mandates all agencies, institutions, individuals, public and private, in Saratoga Springs to abide by the letter and the spirit of the state and federal fair housing laws. And I will sign this tonight, April 17th, 2018. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. The next item on my agenda is an announcement for our Arbor Day proclamation, and I'm going to read this into the record also. Whereas for more than a century, Arbor Day celebrations have been held in communities across the United States. Principles of forestry, conservation, and environmental responsibilities are an important part of our American heritage. And whereas Saratoga Springs is one of more than 3,400 tree cities USA, with the combined population of 140 million. And whereas in 2013, the Saratoga Springs City Council unanimously adopted the first ever urban and community forest master plan, which committed the city to preserving and expanding the urban forest. And whereas the Sustainable Saratoga's Urban Forestry Project has partnered closely with the city on trees issues since 2012, beginning with an inventory of 5,600 trees and park trees donated to the city to provide the data upon which the Urban and Community Forest Master Plan was based. Whereas this May, the city's DPW will plant trees, many in commercial core of the city, a priority of the Urban and Community Forest Master Plan. Whereas on April 28, 2018, Sustainable Saratoga's volunteers will plant 25 large maturing trees throughout the city as part of its annual Tree Toga planting effort. Now therefore, I, Meg Kelly, Mayor of the City of Saratoga Springs, am pleased to join with my colleagues on the City Council, with the dedicated people of Sustainable Saratoga's Urban Forestry Projects and all the Tree Toga volunteers, with all my fellow Saratogians, proclaiming the week of April 23rd, 18 as Arbor Week. Thank you. And then next on my agenda is another announcement for the Saratoga Recreation Department. So the Saratoga Springs Recreation Department is registering camp for Camp Saratoga on a first-come, first-served basis at the Saratoga Recreation Center. Saratoga, the spring soccer referee meeting will be on April 18th, 2018 at 6 p.m. The spring soccer program will begin April 21st, 2018 at 9 a.m. at the Saratoga Casino's fields. Each year, the casino holdings allows the soccer programs to utilize their fields. DPW provides bathrooms, setup, cleanup for the program. Summer clinics and program registrations are on a first-come, first basis, and they are registering until June 18th. The rec center gym is open Monday through Friday, 2 to 5, adult basketball Tuesdays, Thursdays. If you need more information on the recreation information, please visit rec reservations at saratogasprings-org. saratoga-springs.org. Okay. My next item on the agenda is a discussion and vote. Resolution number 262-2017, authorizing award of 2017 Saratoga County Farmland and Open Space Preservation Program. And I'd like to ask Tina Carton to come up and just give us a brief acknowledgement about what this is referring to.
In 2017, the City of Saratoga Springs applied for the Saratoga County Open Farmland Protection Open Space Grant, and we were awarded the grant. To receive the grant, we need to pass a resolution and then also accept the award. So there's two separate items on the agenda. This award was for the purchase of what we call the Tamel property. It was a waterfront parcel that adjoins and abuts Loftberry Lake. It protects both the city watershed and protects a scenic gateway into the city. So this was purchased utilizing the Open Space Bond Fund, and this will be reimbursing that open space bond. The purchase price, the $50,000 from the grant, will go back so that we can purchase additional open space.
Great, thank you. I move that the council approve the resolution number 262-2017, authorizing the award of 2017 Saratoga County Farmland Open Space Preservation Program. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. Next item is discussion and vote, mayor to sign agreement between the County of Saratoga and the City of Saratoga Springs to accept the County Farmland Protection and Open Space Preservation Award. I move that the council authorize the mayor to sign the agreement between the County of Saratoga and the City of Saratoga Springs to accept the County Farmland Protection and the Open Space Preservation Award. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Next item is discussion and vote approval for the mayor to sign NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Grant Letter of Commitment. And I'd like to have Tina just give a brief overview on this.
The City of Saratoga Springs will be applying for a grant for the Clean Energy Communities Program, which is a NYSERDA program. We've completed 4 out of 10 action items. These action items included passing and utilizing the Unified Solar Permit, benchmarking city-owned property and their energy usage. We installed an EV charging station in the new Woodlawn garage, and we've been working on a number of other items. Right now, I'm at a loss of the last one. But the $50,000, the city is committing to investing the funds towards converting inefficient existing lighting to LED street lighting. We own roughly 1,200 decorative Sternberg lights, with roughly 81% of them being high-pressure sodium and 11% of those being LED. The city also leases approximately 2,100 Cobra lights from National Grid. None of these Cobra lights are LEDs. In the city's historic Congress Park, the city has a mixture of high-pressure sodium and LED Sternberg fixtures. The city is looking to invest the funds either in purchase and installation of up to 50,000 LED Sternberg fixtures, so those would be converting existing city-owned Sternberg fixtures from the inefficient high-pressure sodium to the efficient LED. We have these lights. They've been extremely successful. You can see them on Caroline Street and other locations throughout the city. They have a very nice warm glow, and we're also making them dark sky compliant so that they have a cap overhead, and we're not getting the issues a lot of communities had with the new LED lighting where you're getting a lot of light in the night sky. The other, we have roughly 54 of these high-pressure sodiums less in Congress Park. So the idea would be to concentrate the $50,000 to converting the ones in Congress Park. The other opportunity the city is looking into is investing the entire grant to drive down the cost of a larger initiative to convert all lighting, including the National Grid-owned street lighting, to LED lighting. This initiative, we had initial discussions with the New York Power Authority, who Cuomo's given the authority to work with municipalities to transfer the rights from National Grid to the municipalities. And they have given us a proposal that we're looking at, includes the structure, the financing, and how to manage a citywide conversion. The determination is going to be made through City Council, and it's really going to be based, I believe, on the return on investment and further future maintenance costs for the city.
Great. Oh, I'm sorry. All set?
All set.
Can I just add
Sure,
something?
absolutely.
I do really like the way you've structured this. It sounds like if we don't move forward on a larger project, you can still use the $50,000 toward a smaller lighting project. But if we do move forward on the larger project, we can also use the $50,000 on that part of the lighting project. So I think that's great flexibility. I know that we want to work on a much larger sort of audit of all our streetlights and convert them and own them at some point in time. So thank you.
Sure.
Great, thank you, Tina. I move that the council authorize the mayor to sign a NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Grant Letter of Commitment. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. And next up is authorization to apply for NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Grant. I move that the council authorize the mayor to apply for a NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Grant. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Next up is resolution authorizing New York State DOT master agreement for Saratoga Greenbelt Downtown Connector, and I'm going to ask Tina to give us a brief overview.
The city of Saratoga Springs was awarded a grant of $1.53 million through the Transportation Alternatives Program, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program to construct the Saratoga Springs Greenbelt Downtown Connector. The master agreement with the DOT is for the first phase of the project, and it allows the city to bill the DOT for $73,000 for preliminary design, $73,000 for detailed design, and $30,185 for the right-of-way incidentals. And that's the first phase of the project. The city is currently working with Greenman and Peterson to do the final design and engineering, and the survey work has already started to commence. We have funding through the DEC as well as city funds, so these are the additional funds that need to be passed.
Great, thank you. I move that the City Council approve the resolution authorizing New York State DOT master agreement for the Saratoga Greenbelt Downtown Connector. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. Next up is approval of 2 invoices for designated engineer services to Chazen Engineering in the amount of $1,500 and $750. I move that the council approve 2 invoices for designated engineer services to Chazen Engineering in the amount of $1,500 and $750. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. Next up is discussion and vote merit for review and referral to the city and county planning boards, zoning change from warehouse to Transect 4. And I'm going to ask Libby Carino to please step to the mic to give a brief overview.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Libby Carino from Carter Convoy here in Saratoga Springs. I'm counsel on the project. I'm joined by my associate, John Canny, and a member of NRP Group, Krister, who are sitting to my left. I know I've had the opportunity to submit an application to the commissioners and the mayor for review. Essentially, I'm sorry. Essentially, the request is to pull the T4 across 9N over by Tate Lane to allow for 6 parcels that are currently zoned warehouse to be converted to T4, which, as you know, is a mixed-use development. Inside the application, the LA Group and Mike Ingersoll were able to provide a use diagram that can show some of the intensity and density of use. We've heard some feedback concerning areas of density, traffic, and connections to the city trail system. So all those are things that we look forward to discussing at length with the planning board in the event that the city council believes that this application for rezoning has merit. So that's what we're here for tonight. Our next stop would be if the council takes it up to the planning board for more extensive discussions and a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the council approve merit for review and referral to the city and county planning boards zoning change from warehouse to Transect 4 on Tate Lane. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I support this. I'm going to request that the planning board not only opine that the piece is better designated as a T4 than as a warehouse district, but also inform us why it's best designated as a T4.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. Thank you. The next up is discussion, Charter Review Commission budget request, and I'd ask Ben Steelanardis to step to the mic to give an overview.
Good evening. Since created by the mayor, the Charter Review Commission has met on 2 separate occasions. At that most recent meeting we had, we did establish a proposed budget for the council to consider. That was a dollar amount up to $40,000, which includes expenses that would be related to legal counsel, a clerk, communications, and mailings and postage that will ultimately be necessary. So that's on the agenda of Commissioner Madigan that you will have for a discussion and vote later this evening. But I also just wanted to use this moment as an opportunity to indicate to the public that we will have our next meeting on April 25th at 4:30 here in the City Council room. At that time, we will be discussing in depth Titles 1 and 2 of the Charter. And at our last meeting, Commissioner Frank did propose the idea, I think it's a very good one, that at subsequent City Council meetings, I come and just provide an update. So following the next Charter Review Commission meeting, I will ask that I just have a few moments to provide that and at subsequent council meetings.
Great, thank you. That concludes my agenda. On to accounts.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item is discussion and vote of approval to appoint marriage officiant. This resolution is to allow Landon McCord Moore III of Saratoga Springs to officiate a marriage on October 12, 2018. Therefore, I move for the City Council to approve the resolution allowing Landon McCord III to officiate a marriage on October 12, 2018 as distributed with this agenda. It's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
Thank you, Mayor. The second item is an announcement, our grievance class, which we hold annually, and that'll be in 3 weeks here in the council room on May 8th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. here, again in the City Council room. Residents are invited to learn how to correctly fill out the application, to grieve their assessments, and understand the process. It usually takes a couple hours, and it's very informative. The third item is announcement, special events forms now fillable online. Event organizers have been asking to be able to fill out the special events form online and submit it directly to the accounts department. I am pleased to announce this request has been completed, and the fillable special events forms are now online. And the last item is an award of bid traffic signal improvement project to Stilsing Electric, Inc. Upon the recommendation of the Department of Public Safety, I move to award the bid for a traffic signal improvement project to Stilsing Electric, Inc. for the amount not to exceed $265,615. Funding is in line H3143122/52,000/1255. It's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you. On to finance.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on my agenda is discussion and vote resolution for the Assistant City Attorney. Attached to the agenda is an updated resolution for the Assistant City Attorney. There is not a red line version because Novus was not getting along with us today. So we have handed out to the council. Basically, it's in blue, but we call this a red line version so that you can look at any of the changes. Edits include the addition of a dental section similar to what was included in all the other city contracts and resolutions, clarifying language around the standard work week from less than 30 hours to no less than 20 and no more than 29 hours, specific language around the assistant city attorney reporting to the city attorney, and minor formatting edits. I want to thank Trish Bush for her help in updating this resolution. I move to request that council approve the resolution for assistant city attorney as distributed with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
You have dental now, Tony. Welcome. Sorry it took me so long to get it here. Thanks, Tom. Item number 2 is discussion and vote, budget amendment, use of assigned fund balance, economic development. Lines 1 through 2 are to support the Restore New York grant awarded to UPH, which I discussed at the last city council meeting. This reduces the assignment of $150,000 for economic development to $100,000. I request your approval of the budget amendment, use of assigned fund balance, economic development as previously distributed with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
Thank you. Item number 3, discussion and vote, budget transfers payroll. Lines 1 through 5 are to cover the cost of temporary building inspector for a 3-month period. I request your approval of the budget transfers payroll as previously distributed with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
Item number 4, discussion and vote, budget transfers contingency. Lines 1 through 2 are to cover additional discounts taken by taxpayers that could not have been anticipated at the time of budget adoption due to allow the ability of prepayment of 2018 city and county taxes, which I will get into a little detail in a bit. Lines 3 through 8 are to cover the Charter Review Commission budget, as discussed earlier. Lines 9 through 10 are to cover anticipated overtime expenses for the building department. The contingency balance prior to this transfer is $267,570.68 and will be $164,588.43 after approval. So back to lines 1 through 2. The material increase in the number of taxpayers taking advantage of the 2.25 discount offered by the city as part of the city charter. If you pay your taxes in full by March 1st, you receive a 2.25 discount. We had, as of March 31st, 2018, that number rose to 60% collected, or $9.6 million. Last year, as of March 31st, 2017, we collected 53% of city taxes. While the increased usage of the discount negatively impacts the city budget, in this case, roughly an additional $60,000 we're transferring out of contingency to account for that discount. Receiving tax payments early is positive for the city in terms of cash management and our risk profile. So we have a lot of cash on hand, which is good for the city. The charter budget, I believe we agreed would be up to $40,000. So with that, I request your approval of the budget transfers contingency as previously distributed with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to once again thank the Finance Department for the great work they did in getting the taxes in early. That was incredible yeoman's work, and they did it.
Thank you very much. That actually did require some work from DPW as well to get the warrant ready because of the way we levy water and water bills. So it was really a monumental task, and I appreciate that. And it was good for the taxpayers, we think. I don't know, did you figure it out?
It was very good for the taxpayers.
Okay. All
John
right.
knows.
So, all right. Now that you can take a breather, what, today?
They extended it till tomorrow
Because it went down, yeah, all right.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Take a breather tomorrow. All right. Item number 5.
We gotta vote.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes.
Yes, it was good for the taxpayers, I knew that, but
Yeah,
I'd let you jump in
I'm just
there.
going to jump on one thing, because a lot of times you have to do short-term borrowing, I know, early on, just to
Yeah.
get through, and we didn't have to do that kind of.
No, we haven't had to do that in a while
Right.
because, this discount on taxes is there for that
Right,
purpose.
so there's a cost to when we had to borrow, that you don't have to borrow anymore, so I don't really think that the discount really hurts us that much.
No, it's good to have that cash come in. It helps with our cash flow.
Because you would have that warrant for, $1.5 million,
Exactly.
$2 million, you would borrow money to get through a couple of weeks.
Yeah, to
So
have
save a little there.
9.6 million on hand right in your first quarter, it's good for the city. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Item number 5, discussion and vote budget transfers insurance. Lines 1 through 2 are to cover the cost of ADA and fixed asset technology software. I request your approval of the budget transfers insurance as previously distributed with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
So that does complete my agenda. Commissioner Scirocco is not here this evening, and he's asked me to read through his agenda.
So we're on to Public Works.
Yes, thank you. Item number 1 is discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to sign agreement with Saratoga Arts Council Center. This agreement is to extend the term of the existing lease between the City of Saratoga Springs and the Saratoga County Arts Council. The current lease agreement, dated April 1st, 2008, had an initial expiration date of April 1st, 2018, with the option of a 10-year extension, which would bring the lease agreement to April 1st, 2028. The Saratoga County Arts Council currently has plans to improve and update the lease premise through a major capital campaign, which has led the Saratoga Arts Council to request a third extension option to further extend the lease agreement to April 1st, 2038. Pardon me. I move to authorize the mayor to sign an extended 10-year lease agreement effective April 1st, 2018 through April 1st, 2028 with the Saratoga Arts Council, with the lease agreement to include a third extension option with an expiration date of April 1st, 2038. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Since Joel, I can see you're sitting here and you were probably sitting here for this purpose. I don't know if you'd like to take a moment or not to say something.
Just a moment. We so much appreciate what we view as a partnership with the city in offering really a community center for the arts to downtown and to the entire city of Saratoga Springs. I think it's a great use of the building, and it's a fantastic location, and we're happy to be there and happy to be a part of the community in this way.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate all you do down there, especially for your summer camps.
Procedural point, if I might. I think I drafted all the previous versions of this. This is the first version of this lease, and there have been a number of them. There are already provisions in there that allow the Arts Council to extend, so there's nothing new in this version. But this version has attachments of all the previous versions to it, so it's easier to follow, easier to understand. That was a Trish Bush suggestion, and I'll gladly give her credit for it.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Did you make a motion?
I did.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes. Thank you, Joel.
Item number 2 is the discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to sign agreement with Schindler Elevator. This is an extended agreement with Schindler Elevator Company for the service, repair, replacement, and maintenance of the elevators located in City Hall and the Arts Center on Broadway. The extended agreement shall continue from the effective date of April 17th, 2018 until April 4th, 2020 in the amount not to exceed $24,999 per year. I move to authorize the mayor to sign an extended agreement with Schindler for the maintenance and service of the elevators located in City Hall and the Arts Center. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? The matter passes.
Item number 3, discussion and vote, approval to pay invoices to Ferguson Waterworks. The Department of Public Works has a contract with Ferguson Waterworks, a sole source provider for the City of Saratoga Springs supply of fire hydrants, parts, and equipment. These invoices came about as a result of purchasing the material prior to a formal PO being in place. The city's purchasing policy requires that a purchase order be issued to pay an amount over $1,499. $1,499. The amount exceeds $1,499. Therefore, I move to authorize council to approve payments of 3 invoices to Ferguson Waterworks for fire hydrants and parts in the amount of $24,466.59. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The matter passes.
That's it. That completes Public Works agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. On to Public Safety.
Thank you. The first item is I'd like to discuss to announce that there was active shooter training held at SPAC this last weekend. There was a multi-agency joint exercise conducted by the Saratoga Springs Police Department, the New York State Park Police, and 4 additional agencies, the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office, the DEC, and the Joint Tactical Task Force, totaling over 100 officers at SPAC. The training was observed by several other agencies and private sector personnel. It was the second time that we've worked with the New York State Police New York State Park Police on active shooter training. Last year, a few attended our NIRA training. But this was the first time that we had this many agencies involved to this scale. We only need to look to Las Vegas to understand why we need to train for a location such as SPAC. There are stats from prior to the Las Vegas incident where 58 were killed, 851 were injured in the Vegas incident, but over the last 15 years, there's been over 200 active shooter incidents in the United States. And the number of these active shooter incidents is increasing year over year. During an event, there's no time to realize and plan for communication and understanding of what other agencies will do. Large-scale events often have multiple agencies involved, and the officers involved in this training will work with the Saratoga Springs Police Department on a regular basis and may be entering an active shooter situation along with us. Prior active shooter events have shown us the need to prepare and train with agencies that will be working together under a high-stress situation. This will allow us to better prepare and reduce confusion during an event, reducing response time and saving lives. This is our force-on-force reality-based training in which we utilize simulation Glock handguns and converted patrol rifles. These guns provide the sound of gunfire and shoot a plastic projectile at over 400 feet per second. Officers wear protective gear during the training. Reality-based training allows the officers to mentally and physically prepare for response during a stressful situation and to practice in an environment that is as close to reality as possible. Training at locations such as SPAC, NIRA, and hopefully in the future our schools provide a twofold benefit. The officers not only practice their techniques, but learn the layout and the ins and outs of a building that they may have never seen before. So it was a successful training over this last weekend, and I'm grateful to all of the agencies that were involved in conducting this training. My second item is to appoint a code enforcement special prosecutor. Last week we introduced to the council Sam Better as code enforcement special prosecutor. During the last 2 weeks, all documentation have been submitted to HR and approved. This position is being funded by a grant that is paid at a rate of $40 for 15 to 20 hours per week. Sam will be tasked with handling code enforcement in building cases with a special focus on zombie properties. He will work under the direction of myself, Deputy Commissioner Daly, and the city attorneys Vince De Leonardis and Tony Izzo. Sam is a graduate of the University of Albany and Albany Law School, and he's currently an associate with the Schwartz Law Firm. My third item is to announce a retirement. And it's with somewhat heavy heart that I announce that Traffic Maintenance Supervisor Mark Benaquista will be retiring on April 30th, 2018. after 29 years of service to the people of Saratoga Springs. The department did not exist before Commissioner Lou Benton hired Mark Benequista. And Mark built this traffic maintenance department up from the ground. Today, the department is responsible for the regulation and control of vehicle and pedestrian safety and on all city-maintained streets and properties. In his first year, Mark striped a little fewer than 15 streets and maintained 13 traffic lights. This year, his department will paint approximately 50 miles of lines on the 150 miles of streets in the city of Saratoga Springs and will maintain 52 traffic lights. When Mark began work, Broadway was striped for one-lane traffic in each direction. The middle was a free-for-all. When Mark started, there were no traffic lights on Broadway at the corners of Grove or Caroline. Imagine what the traffic would be like on Broadway without those traffic lights there today. 29 years ago, the city's only striping machine looked like a lawn tractor. Today, Mark supervises a highway striping truck and 6 ancillary pieces of striping equipment, including one piece that Mark designed and that allows parking lots to be striped while cars are still in them. And I can tell you from personal experience, 2 weekends ago, going to Boston and being shut out of a parking lot that was near where I needed to go because it was being striped for the entire weekend. How valuable this is and how well, I think, appreciated it is as a major convenience for both our residents and our businesses in Saratoga. Mark's crew currently maintains 83 vehicles, 7 trailers, and 33 special pieces of motorized equipment. Mark is a reliable and informed source of information for compliance with the New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law and both the federal and state manual for unified traffic control devices. And Mark has drafted significant portions of Chapter 225, which is the vehicle and traffic section of our city code. Our department will miss Mark and the dedication that he shows to the city of Saratoga Springs. Mayor, I'm removing item 4 from my agenda, and that is the end of my agenda.
Thank you. On to supervisors. Supervisor Veach.
Thank you, Mayor. First on my agenda, two quick items tonight is just to announce that there will be a public hearing on May 9th at 4:25 p.m. at the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors office, main hearing room. There is a proposal for Skidmore College to purchase some land that the county owns. It's about a half an acre of land near Stafford's Bridge Road. Currently, right now, Skidmore has a building there, and I think they have some boats on their property that they own next to the county land. But it's about a half an acre that they're going to use or to purchase from the county for parking and some other areas for storing their equipment. So it's not a lot of land. The purchase price, it was assessed at or appraised at $9,000, so not a lot of money or anything, but something that Skidmore needs, and we're offering to sell them that parcel. So it does require a public hearing in a local law, so May 9th, 4:25 p.m. at the County Board of Supervisors. Second on my agenda is just to report that at today's Board of Supervisors meeting, the supervisors voted to accept the proceeds from the sale of the Maplewood Manor nursing home that we once owned near our offices. We created a Maplewood Manor Local Development Corporation to manage and to kind of facilitate that sale since the building has been outside of the county operation for several years now. Those monies are being returned back to the county from the Local Development Corporation, and it's going to be used for paying the retirements of the workers who retired from Maplewood Manor. The amount of money was about $9.2 million, and it goes into a special fund, and then we'll use that to help fund the retirement of the workers from Maplewood Manor. It is the final step, actually, in the sale of that building. dissolving the LDC, which will end the ownership and any county interest in that facility. So with that concludes my agenda, and thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. On to Supervisor Gaston.
Sorry, sounds like y'all got the cough today. I have a couple of items on my agenda. Before, I would like the council to recognize the passing of former First Lady Barbara Bush. She passed away this evening at 92. Her focus on literacy, I know, was an inspiration to a lot of people. And as the wife and the mother of former presidents, she stands above. And so anyhow, that kind of hit me hard. 3 things I have. One is an update from the Committee for Health and Social Services. May is a very popular month, and it has also been designated as the Older Americans Month and Mental Health Month by the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors. So if you're looking for anything to celebrate, this month's got a couple things. Also, we accepted a grant of a little over $149,000 to Shelters of Saratoga for the administration of a Code Blue shelter. In talking about emergency response, Kathy Duncan from Public Health wanted to thank the city for their involvement in an emergency preparedness drill that was held at Maple Avenue Middle School. It simulated a hepatitis A outbreak, and they were able to simulate immunization of almost 350 people using 10 nurses in 2 hours. The preparedness drill was evaluated by the Department of Health, and as soon as we get any report from that, I can pass that along if it's not otherwise passed along. From the Real Property Committee, the sale of all of the properties went through, leaving the county with approximately $800,000 over the foreclosed delinquent taxes. So that was a very successful sale on that end. Obviously, Saratoga Springs doesn't participate in that program, but the proceeds can still be used to help benefit the city. Lastly, I'd like to thank organizations from Saratoga Springs and Saratoga County for the participation in an opioid forum. It discussed not only opioid addiction, but alcohol and gambling, which are 2 other issues. Representatives from the Saratoga Springs Police Department, the Prevention Council, the high school, Saratoga Hospital, New Choices, and the Saratoga Coroner were all there to provide information on addiction and recovery. They provided a lot of resources, and if you have any concerns yourself or anyone who may benefit from those, I would urge you to reach out. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other business? Yep. I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll go into a client-attorney session. Thank you.
Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.